42. Your next news is at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. When Kash Patel got confirmed and sworn in last week, he had this to say about bringing accountability to the FBI.
There's a singular system of justice for all Americans, and there will be accountability. And the reason that this mission is so important is simply the following. 100,000 people last year raped. 100,000 people died of CCP fentanyl overdose and heroin. 17,000 homicides. Violent crime is out of control. We cannot have a United States of America where that is acceptable, where someone dies every 30 minutes, where someone ODs every 7, where someone's raped every 6. That cannot be allowed to continue, and it will not be allowed to continue.
Well, that's a useful posture to take with respect to public safety. But accountability also has to come to people who, not because of their political views, but because of their conduct, potentially violated the law. And both Kash Patel and the newly minted deputy director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, have previously had very tough things to say about Adam Schiff in particular, vis-a-vis Russiagate. Here's Kash Patel.
Adam Schiff is the worst criminal in Congress in the last 250 years. Adam Schiff went to the podium day after day after day saying, I know nothing about this, we're not going to discuss it, we're going to protect it. And then Adam Schiff, led the prosecution of the impeachment trial in the Senate of President Donald Trump. Talk about someone who was conflicted out of the game because he was part of the hoax that brought Charmella in, manufactured that false accusation, and then peddled it out to the world, and he continued, not surprising, he's lied about almost everything in his life. But now he lied just to set up a presidential impeachment. And that's what I was talking about, these disinformation campaigns. He should be investigated because he lied to the world about his interactions with Charmella, who is a whistleblower, and I can't stress this enough, that started a presidential impeachment.
Talking about that CIA analyst, Eric Charmella, but the worst criminal in Congress in 250 years, he should be investigated. Kash Patel is now the head of the FBI. Dan Bongino, just a couple of days ago, before he was announced as the deputy director, had this to say on his show about Schiff.
Why is Adam Schiff so worried? Folks, I strongly encourage you to go back and take another look today at the Russia collusion hoax. I know it's a story that's old and a lot of people want to move on. I'm going to be straight with you. I don't want to move on. We had the FBI in conjunction with the Department of Justice, officials in Congress, foreign governments, and intel people fabricate a story, invent a story that could have caused and done serious long-term harm to international relations with a nuclear-powered foe. It's kind of a big freaking deal. I'm not letting it go. And you listen to me. This is going to be very important in the coming days. I'm not letting this go. I want to find out what happened because it can never happen again. Not to a Democrat, not to a Republican, not to a Libertarian, not to any United States citizen. You do not get to alter or try to change the course of electoral politics by fabricating a story, hijacking the justice system then to give the patina of truth to a fake story. You don't get to do that. Why do I bring that up now? Because who is the ringmaster of that circus? Yes, Adam Schiff. And no, I'm not letting it go.
Well, now they're in place, and if the Adam Schiff is investigated, of course, they're going to cry political retribution, but it wouldn't be based on the arguments they're making, and it has to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For more on this, please be joined by Thomas Baker, retired FBI special agent and legal attaché, author of The Fall of the FBI, How a Once Great Agency Became a Threat to Democracy. Thomas Baker, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
It's very good to be with you.
Do you have any concerns about Kash and Bongino investigating Adam Schiff and going where the facts lead?
Well, going where the facts lead is always a good idea if there's enough facts there. In terms of the ringmaster, and not to excuse Adam Schiff in any way, because he was viciously motivated, but there were several other ringmasters involved in that whole fiasco. Primarily in the agencies, in the executive agency, and one who has really escaped to a large extent is John Brennan. John Brennan's CIA initially lured the FBI. This is documented, and I have it in my book. Lured the FBI into opening that investigation, which they opened in the United Kingdom, and he manipulated our relationship with the British. Under a long-standing agreement. So there's a lot of ringmasters who were involved in that. The key thing long-term for Kash and Bongino is to change the culture of the FBI, get away from all these freewheeling intelligence shenanigans, and focus on law and order. And we have some good hope there in that regard. Bongino has a law enforcement background, but the biggest hope is probably Kash Patel's opening comments about crime in America and what he wants to focus on. And believe it or not, and you may believe it, I'm still in contact with a lot of working FBI people, particularly in the Washington field office, and they're very anxious to get back to criminal work. And actually, most FBI agents truly enjoy working with the state and local police. So I think what they have in mind is a lot of task forces in Washington, D.C. specifically, but also around the country to address violent crime. And I think that will be well received by the agent population of the current FBI.
Well, knowing what you know, I mean, do you think Senator Schiff is nervous right now?
Probably, yes, probably, and he should be. And let's leave him hanging, as Richard Nixon, as we said about Patrick Gray, leave him swinging in the wind. But I don't think, and this is a tactical decision, they should waste a lot of energy pursuing him unless they have really specific, articulable facts. That was their problem, the left's problem, when they went after Trump and Trump's campaign and some of his associates in the Russian collusion thing. They really didn't have any facts. They were speculating. And I don't think my advice would be, don't waste your energy going after Adam Schiff when there's so many other things staring you right in the face.
The only thing I'd say to that is, I mean, like the agency's big enough to walk and chew gum, right? And so you can do the public safety task force that you described and that you heard Kash Patel reference in his post swearing in comments. But Mike Davis over at the Article 3 Project has talked about criminal violation of Donald Trump's civil rights, for example. And as you say, the ringmasters that have escaped scrutiny, much less accountability, Brennan, maybe Comey, maybe McCabe, maybe Schiff, maybe others. They made those statements. I mean, Kash Patel's statement, the worst criminal in Congress in 250 years. It's hard to walk back that comment without at least pursuing an investigation of said individuals if there is the basis there seems to be that there was possible criminal wrongdoing.
You're correct, and now they're in a better position, actually, we would hope, to determine how much factual predicate they have to go after Schiff and people like that, and they'll be in a position to know that. I don't dispute that. And anybody who got our country so off track by their useless pursuit of an elected president should be prosecuted if the material is there to prosecute them. I said at the time, and I'll say it again, and not regarding Schiff, because I don't know all the facts about Schiff, quite frankly, but these other people who were in positions of power, be it Brennan, be it Comey, and half a dozen others. What happened here was more an abuse of authority than a criminal undertaking. And that's still serious. A lot of these people, they had the authority to open a criminal investigation. They had the authority to open a counterintelligence investigation. A lot of them, up to and including then Vice President Biden, had the authority to unmask people. That's a lot of what happened in the investigation of General Flynn. There was a lot of unauthorized or abusive unmasking of American citizens whose names appeared in some of these intelligence transcripts. There was an abuse of the FISA process in getting FISA warrants against Americans. All of those were abuses. Those abuses have to stop. And the root of those abuses is, I think, a cultural thing, an attitudinal thing. And it'll take a lot of effort over a period of time to change the culture, but they have to try and do it. And Kash and Dan have all my best wishes in trying to do that.
Well, with respect to Comey and McCabe, for example, they give conflicting testimony under oath about the Russia collusion investigation. And so one or both of them potentially perjure themselves, for example. Kleinsmith, the attorney that doctored the email, the only person that's actually been held criminally liable, and barely at that. He just did that of his own volition. There was no order given by a superior. I don't know. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but that seems to be an area that's worth pursuing investigatively. The conduct of Strzok and Page and so forth. Maybe it was just limited to an abuse of power and unethical conduct. Maybe it was a rise to the level of criminality. All of those players deserve, in my view, a thorough going over.
Well, I'd love to see them put up against the wall and get it going over. And it's just, and a couple of those you mentioned in particular, the abuses were so widespread. It betrayed an attitude, and I use the word culture, that allowed this to happen. That they were freewheeling because they were acting as an intelligence agency, where they could do these freewheeling targets of other individuals. Durham, who at former Attorney General Barr's request did a good look at this thing. He did a report of about 300 pages, and he just said they just had no basis. Now, he didn't go into what's behind, but he said there was no basis for any of the Russian collusion investigation. I think what allowed that to come about was this terrible change in culture that goes back to Mueller, and what Kash and Bongino have to try and do, backed by the Attorney General Pam Bondi, backed ultimately by the president, is change the culture.
What do you think about Bongino as the deputy director pick? We've heard from some of our friends and former FBI agents who are of the reform the FBI variety, like yourself, who were like, well, I'm hopeful for Bongino, but it probably would have been better if they selected as a deputy somebody that came from the agency, so they had a better sort of working understanding of how the agency worked and better angles into the reforms that need to be made. What do you think?
Well, frankly, neither one of these guys would have been my first pick or would have first occurred to me. But in the case of Kash, having read a lot about him and listened to him at his confirmation hearings before the Senate panel, he's impressed me more and more. Bongino the same way. I wouldn't have thought of him at all as my first pick, but I think so I agree pretty much with a lot of those other fellows. But what I think they're doing now, when I say they, I mean Trump's whole team, what they're doing, they're taking a whole different approach. Yeah, historically really is only under the past three directors, I'd say, Mueller, Comey, and Wray, that the deputy director literally ran the organization, all the nuts and bolts, all the investigations. That's how it worked. So you really did, under that model, needs someone with a lot of depth of experience in those federal investigations. That may not be what these guys have in mind. You know, they could do a different template. In the past, prior to Mueller, the director himself, like Louis Freeh and others, they ran the operations themselves, hands-on. Of course, the Bureau was a lot smaller then, believe it or not, just 20 years ago, and a lot less top-heavy. So I think the primary thing, and I've preached, and you've heard me before, and you've read my book, is to change the culture. I think now what's been discovered, and of course Elon Musk is looking at this government-wide, is the bureaucratic bloat, the growth at the top-heavy. I mean, the FBI in 20 years went from an organization where the director had 12 divisions at FBI headquarters, each headed by an assistant director. Now they have, hold on to your seat, over 30 divisions, each headed by an assistant director. And so now they have this other layer, the executive assistant director, 6 people who have grouped these divisions together, and they report to the director. That whole middle layer could be eliminated. There could be a lot of elimination at the top to eliminate the bloat, but that's a new problem, the top heaviness. I still think the major problem is the underlying culture, which is much harder to fix.
Thomas Baker, retired FBI special agent and legal attaché, author of the book The Fall of the FBI, How a Once Great Agency Became a Threat to Democracy. Thomas Baker, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening to my analysis. I appreciate the opportunity.
We appreciate you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Hey, buddy. Good to see you back on the golf course. You must be feeling better, huh?
Yeah, I finally got my blood pressure under control without all the medication side effects.
Wow. New doctor?
No, a superfood juice, believe it or not.
A juice?
Yeah, it's called 120 Life. It's got ingredients like pomegranates, tart cherries, 6 natural ingredients